Welcome to the Maritime Executives podcast series, In the Know. I'm Tony Munoz, Editor-in-Chief. Our Executive Corner podcast will provide conversations with top executives concerning events and issues that are shaping our industry today. We will also bring you up to speed with the latest news and editorials covered by the Maritime Executive. Welcome to our podcast. Today we're speaking with William Doyle. He is the Executive Director of the Maryland Ports Authority, and we'd like to welcome you to our podcast. And if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, we'd appreciate that.
Okay, well, thank you, Tony. Really appreciate being here. It's been a while since you and I ran into each other. And I really appreciate you inviting me to be here on In the Know with the Maritime Executive.
Thank you.
So just a little recap. I am the Executive Director for the Maryland Port Administration, Port of Baltimore. And I've been in this job for about 2 years and 4 months. I came in at the height of COVID. Something difficult to come in as the leader of an organization where you really didn't get to meet any of your employees for a significant amount of time. I had about a core group of maybe 10 individuals, executive staff that I worked with day in and day out. It was quite something to go through during that period of time. And then, as you know, previous to that, I was the CEO for the Dredging Contractors of America, representing the dredging and marine construction industry. And then before that, I was at the Federal Maritime Commission as a commissioner for the Federal Maritime Commission, appointed by President Obama and twice unanimously confirmed by the Senate. Now, one thing I would like to say is that, unfortunately, my first chairman of the Federal Maritime Commission, Rick Ladinsky, who was a good friend of mine, passed away last week. And he died last week. And he was just a tremendous asset, yes, to the maritime industry. Always looking out for the little guy, the shippers, the U.S. flag, labor, truckers, all those folks. And I just wanted to let folks know that tremendous man.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. That's important to be recognizing people in our industry that had a great impact, and like the name of the port, Helen Delich.
Bentley, yes.
Bentley, yes. Helen was a great speaker and very enthusiastic person. And she was a tremendous asset. And so kudos for you for recognizing your friend and our maritime executive. Port congestion has been a global issue, and it's been highlighted by Southern California. How is the Port of Baltimore dealing with congestion?
We did pretty well, Tony, during the time frame. I would consider, the Port of Baltimore, when you look at container freight, international containerized goods coming into the United States, and also the export, that we were a relief valve. We had in the range of 80 ad hoc vessels, container vessels, that would come into the Port of Baltimore.
Wow.
And they were destined for other ports. So, although we have normal container operations that go on here, we were a port that shippers and beneficial cargo owners sought out to get the ships into port and then into the stream of commerce. So we did well in that regard, but by no means were we immune. When you have those unscheduled vessels and you have that amount of cargo coming in, other parts of the supply chain, even in Baltimore, back up. Like the trucking, getting in and out of the terminal itself. We had our share of empties that we had to deal with on terminal that would clog up the terminal. Plus, we also have a lot of construction that's going on in and around the terminal with new cranes coming in, the 50-foot deep berths that we've just dredged. So we had a lot of things that we had to move around in order to help out the supply chain. But overall, we did well. I think that if you step aside from the container business side, we also had and were impacted by the supply chain shortage of microchips because the Port of Baltimore is the largest importer and exporter of automobiles in the United States. So we had to deal with that And then, the other cargoes that we have coming in and out, aluminum. It's a significant coal port as well. And we have gypsum, sugar, Domino sugar. So we have a lot of things that have gone in and out of the port that were impacted one way or another during the pandemic.
Wow, that's pretty amazing that you took over at the beginning of the pandemic and you had to confront all of the issues, personnel, getting people on the dock. I know it was a great problem finding labor and dock workers, and then certainly getting the cargoes on their way. Wow, that's an amazing accomplishment for you to take it from there and today. And overall, what do you see today? I mean, are you vibrant again? Are you everything's flowing? I know that you're about ready to do a double stack train in and out of the port. You reconstructed the Howard Street tunnel, and what opportunities does this now create for the port?
Yeah, there's a few things, and Tony, you hit on a couple of things there. I'd just like to reflect on a bit. Is that
Sure.
The Port of Baltimore's labor, the ILA labor that we have in the port, they were phenomenal. They took the pandemic from the beginning, from the get-go, with the utmost seriousness. Mask wearing all the time. Equipment washing. So they would wash the equipment. They would make sure that the equipment was clean and washed. Remember, none of us knew what the actual effect of this was going to be. So, right. There may have been a heightened sense of, cleanliness and what we needed to do, but they showed up every day. They worked hard. We had very limited disruptions from COVID because the ILA longshoremen took it with such seriousness. On the Howard Street Tunnel. So, yeah. I'm speaking to you and in the know and maritime executive. The Howard Street Tunnel is called the Howard Street Tunnel Project because of the Howard Street Tunnel. CSX rail line is in Baltimore, and that is the crux of the bottleneck, basically on the entire East Coast for CSX network. That tunnel was built in 1895. So that's what we're looking at. Now, let me take an example for you. You can go from Maine to Baltimore, double stack. You can go from Florida to Baltimore, double stack. You cannot go through Baltimore because of the Howard Street Tunnel, double stack. You cannot go from the Port of Baltimore west into the Ohio Valley, Chicago, Columbus, or Detroit, double stack because of that tunnel. So when that tunnel is rebuilt and operational, we'll be able to do double stack from the Port of Baltimore into the Ohio Valley, Chicago market, plus the entire CSX network for double stack will open as well. And just so you know, that I said we call it the Howard Street Tunnel Project here in Baltimore, but it's actually 22 bridges that are involved in this project between Baltimore and Philadelphia. Oh, so wow. The funding mechanism is that the lion's share of the funding Maryland is paying for, which is $200 million. We got a $125 million grant from the Federal Railroad Administration. We have CSX themselves as the rail company put in $113 million. And then the state of Pennsylvania, they kicked in $22 million. So this was a project that came together with many different entities involved, including states, and we compete with each other. But you know what? Let's get this done. Let's get the infrastructure in place, and it works out well. So that's the crux of the right. Howard Street Tunnel project.
Wow. The bipartisan infrastructure that is taking place today. I mean, you've just hit it on the nail. My goodness, I didn't realize that the tunnel had so many connecting factors in terms of distribution. That's amazing. That's amazing amount of bipartisanship. Your recent appointment by Secretary Pete to the Transportation System National Advisory Committee. Tell us about this important appointment. and what it will oversee and what its mission will be.
Yeah. Well, I was very pleased and honored to be appointed to this board. There's different boards that you have in the federal government, like the White House themselves. They have like the Council of Economic Advisors. Mm-hmm. This is more along the lines of that same thing, but it would be the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, his Council of Transportation Advisors. And we would advise him on things that are going on in the supply chain, in perhaps the Jones Act, in the Maritime Security Program, which is U.S. Flag International Fleet. So those are the types of topics that come up in what's known as MITSNAC, the Maritime Transportation Security National Advisory Committee. So I've got on that committee, and we had Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary Pete, come to the port. So he has visited the Port of Baltimore. It was his first physical viewing of a port when he became Secretary of Transportation. And he really saw into all the facets. It's a good port to come to, meaning Baltimore, because of our diverse cargo mix. We have every kind of cargo coming into this port and out of this port, and you were able to see that in Baltimore. It's not just we completely rely on containers, but we completely rely on railroad or automobiles. We have cruise ships. We have bulkers. We have everything coming out. So he was able to see that.
Right. No, that's right. The multi-diversity of your cargoes coming through the port. I many times have seen press releases and things of that nature, showing the bulk ships, the rail cars with caterpillars and trucks on it, the ro-ro vessels with automobiles. It's an amazing port. And tell me a little bit about the port itself. I know you have a number of terminals. Tell me about where the bulks come in, where the containers terminals are. What is the capacity of the containers across the dock? That sort of thing. A little bit about.
So we do. I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, we look for. We're heading toward. What we'd like to get to within the next couple of years is, 1 million container TEU coming through the port per year. Like I said, we're heading toward 1 million on the ro-ro automobile side too. Mm-hmm. But when you take a look at the port and the rail connect, what I didn't realize coming in, and which I really appreciate now, is the amount of exports that we have going out of the Port of Baltimore. Yeah. I mean, it is tremendous when you see Caterpillar, John Deere, Case New Holland. They all export from the Port of Baltimore. Their equipment comes in on rail from their manufacturing base out in the Midwest. So you see those come in. Mm-hmm. When they come in on the trains, it's wonderful to see. If it's a John Deere train, it's like all green John Deeres coming in as far as the eye can see on the rail line coming in, and they export. But we also do, because they're multinational now as well, so they will manufacture overseas, and again, they'll come in through the Port of Baltimore, and our truckers do a tremendous job as well, on the auto haulers, on the containers and all that stuff. So the truckers will get the goods into the stream of commerce as well. And you never want to forget the truckers, because they do play. I mean, they are the backbone.
Tremendous part of it.
Yeah, no matter what you do, any port, it's the truckers. They just do all the work, the hard work, and one way or another, it touches the truck. So, that's what we have here in the Port of Baltimore. Like I said, we do have coal, we have liquids that come in and out. We do about 100,000, 150,000. I think it's 150. You can quote me on that. 150,000 passengers per year on the cruise ships going out of the Port of Baltimore, and that's right now both with Royal Caribbean and Carnival Cruise Lines. We've got Norwegian Cruise Lines. They've announced that they're going to do a couple of ad hoc cruises out of here that may turn into something permanent more into the future. But we do cruise ships as well.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that you have BWI Airport so close by.
Sure.
that for a cruise ship, and that's a lot closer than flying into the airport in Miami and getting to a cruise ship. Believe me, it's a lot of difference. You know, the cruise ship industry is a very important part of South Florida, and I think Baltimore has a tremendous amount of you know, so close to DC and so many other things that you get by going up there and taking a cruise and having a day before or day after. You know, that's just tremendous. But kudos on everything that you're doing up there. And would you like to say anything else
Well,
to?
look, I mean, one thing about the cruise ship industry, because I know
Yeah,
that you're based in South Florida, is that what I like to do, and it's usually when it's in like the winter time or late fall, is I'll go down to the cruise ship terminal when they're starting to load on, so it's a little bit cold out. So we're a whether you fly in or you drive, it's a drive-to market too. So we've got people coming in from New Jersey, from Western Pennsylvania, from Washington D.C., Virginia, and all that. So what I do is they all come in flying their colors, and you can tell where they're from. You got the Steelers coming in, you got the Cincinnati. They're all wearing their gear. The Bengals, the Jets, the Eagles. They're all coming in. I've even seen Patriots. So it's pretty cool when you see all these people. It's cold when they're coming in, but you
right.
see where they're from, and you get a good cross section of basically the Mid Atlantic to the Northeast on
Yeah,
people that will actually come out of the Port of Baltimore to want to cruise to the
yeah.
Caribbean. Yeah.
It's an amazing place. I had the privilege of going up and visiting my tags and
Yep.
certainly into DC and
Sure.
MEBA and some of the other unions
Sure.
in the region and for quite a long time. And I really enjoyed. I just felt privileged to be able to meet the people that I met. And I have not forgotten them. And you were one of the people that were very
Thank
kind
you.
to me along the way. And I just wanted to catch up with you and say hello and hear about what's going on. And I want to thank you for your time.
Good. You run a great publication, Tony. I appreciate everything that you do. It's a pleasure knowing you, an honor to know you, and keep up the great work yourself, sir.
Thank you. Be well.
All right. You too.